Everyone, it's Christian B. Burnaby, Vancouver-based real estate agent. Welcome to Rapid Fire Real Estate, where I take you through several topics today, and we're going to spend several minutes on each, and you can take that intel with you out into the marketplace. And if you need more help or you want a second opinion, feel free to reach out to me, and my contact is in the show notes below. Okay, for today's video, I want to focus on pre-sale promotions. There's a lot of promotions I'm coming across right now in the pre-sale world. I want to share those with you. Second is the bulletproof nature of Vancouver real estate. Third is the negative news headlines that we see in real estate, especially pertaining to this mortgage cliff that people are discussing or have been talking about the last 18 months. And finally, this story of friends buying real estate together. How did it turn out? That is coming up towards the end of the sequence. Okay, the first one I want to start with is promotions. So I mentioned in another video that the presale market is very soft right now. Very few buyers, and there's a lot more product. And I gave an example of a project in Metrotown through a source that revealed to us that they've had 2 sales in the last 3 months on a whole tower. So that tells you right there that it's a slow market. And you, dear buyer, if that's what you are, you've got a lot of negotiating power. You've got the leverage on your side there. So you can go in and you can ask for things. Now, the developers aren't dumb, and they are under timelines and have targets to get certain sales. Like, for example, a lot of developers have to have 60, 70% of the towers sold, because then they get the construction loan to start digging and building. And so here are some of the pre-sale promotions I've come across. One that I mentioned in a previous video, 2.99% for 3 years from one development. And when I did the math on that at the time with those interest rates, it was a savings of about $40,000 per $40,000 in savings. Now, that becomes less attractive, though, as the interest rates come down. There is another developer, however, that's jumped on board with that as well and is offering 2.99% for 3 years. Another example of a promotion, free parking. Now, what's the value of a second parking spot? Let's say you're buying a 2-bed, 2-bath. You're normally getting one. If the developer now offers you a second spot, that's a value of $35,000 to $50,000, right? Because that's how much you would be paying if you were buying it directly from the developer in the pre-sale launch phase. One developer is offering to pay your strata fees, your taxes, property taxes, and your insurance for 1 calendar year. So that one sounds interesting. Low deposits, as little as 10% on some developments. And in addition to that, one developer is offering to put your deposit into an interest-bearing account, offering you 12% interest on that deposit, which would be credited to you at completion. Now, I did reach out to that team, and they say now it's actually they've sweetened the pot there. It's actually you get 12% on your deposit, or take a $50,000 credit at completion. So that is a very nice offering. That said, you still want to do your comparable market analysis. Like when I'm going into a pre-sales center with my clients and they're looking at this project, I'll say, okay, this is great. You can get this, but what could you get like this that's maybe 2, 3, 4 years old? It's still pretty new. And sometimes you can save $50,000, $100,000 and it's a 2-year-old product. So, I mean, that's really, it depends on your timeline and what you are wanting to get. Assignment fees used to be 3%. So imagine $800,000, that's $24,000 assignment fee. One developer is offering to take that from $24,000 to $1,000. So a lot of pre-sale promotions out there right now, looking quite attractive. Okay, the second topic I wanted to jump into today is sort of the bulletproof nature of prices. And just as an example here, we just came through an interest rate environment where we saw a really fast, rapid increase from 2% rates to 6%, a little over 6% fixed rates a while ago. And it didn't really do a dent to Vancouver prices, did it? I mean, the residential detached is off, maybe 3-4%? Condos, yeah, maybe another percent, but that's about it. Not that much, huh? You compare that to the interest rate hikes in the early 1980s. Granted, those were much higher. Those were like 15, 16%. And there, home prices came down 40 to 50%, not 4%. So, it's even with an interest rate increases is probably the biggest lever that the Bank of Canada has to slow down the economy, and is probably the most likeliest cause of prices going down, and it hasn't had much of an impact. So, and neither did the coronavirus prior to that. So it's a very bulletproof market in many respects. And that's because the greater Vancouver area is, like I like to say, the California of Canada. It is the most desirable place to live, especially if you've been to places in the prairies, you'd know that. And no disrespect to the prairies, but I've got friends from Edmonton and they joke. They're like, no, I'm not going back. Okay, third topic for today, negative news headlines. Always be careful with this. It's so easy to be seduced by pessimism, by these and influenced by negative articles online. And I was doing some research here prior to making this video on the mortgage cliff. Remember that? And from all through 2023 up right into the early part of this year, 2024, people were talking about the experts were talking about the coming mortgage cliff. And this is the time where, most Canadians' mortgages would expire and they would renew these mortgages. But because they bought during the pandemic, they're now renewing at higher rates. They can't afford the higher rates. Thus, they are going to run out of cash and they're going to be forced to sell. So far, we haven't seen much of that, if at all. And here, let me share a couple of examples of headlines from 2023. This one was Canada's menacing mortgage math means crisis looming. Ooh. And the article says that there's a mortgage renewal cliff, and we're really close to it. 2/3 of mortgages are renewing between 2024 and 2026, and most people have payments that are going to rise by about 50%. Now, we have to be careful about that 50% part, because with these rates coming down as fast as they went up, they may not be going up 50% for people who are renewing in 2026. It might be a little bit lower than that. Another article here was RBC bracing for renewal impact. And, it goes on to say 3/4 of its mortgages will be facing higher rates. And they found that 90% of RBC mortgages, according to this article, are fixed rate mortgages with interest rates between 3.1 and 3.6%. Well, you know what? By 2025, late 2025, we may have interest rates that might be in the low fours, or getting close to there now, but maybe back in that sort of high threes, mid threes range. So it may not have the impact that a lot of people think. And not only, we're talking a little bit about negative news headlines. Be careful with predictions. These predictions are based on assumptions. The assumptions here were, in these articles from 2023, are that the rates would be the same as when the authors of these articles were writing them. Clearly, we know now, in hindsight, the rates are coming down fast because of a stalling economy, and it's not going to be as expensive to renew your mortgage 12 or 24 months from now. So keep that in mind. There's so many negative headlines and so many assumptions embedded in these headlines, and they often just don't pan out. Okay. Last thing here, one of the articles said that there was a growing possibility of delinquencies, mortgage defaults. Well, right now, the mortgage defaults in Canada are sort of averaging 2 per 1,000 homeowners. Not much to base a crisis on. For example, in the United States, when in 2007-08, for every 1,000 homes, there's probably about 100 to 150 homes where the owners were throwing the keys on the table. So it really goes to show you that it's still the Canadian housing market is still pretty solid. And I recall reading somewhere recently, I haven't fact-checked it yet, but that close to 40 to 50% of homeowners in the greater Vancouver area own their homes clear title. And if that's true, that means that there's no mortgage on their house. It just tells you how much equity that homeowners would have. Meaning, even if home prices came down 20%, it's not going to affect them at all because they're not paying a mortgage. Okay, last topic here is the article I was going to discuss with you about friends buying real estate. Okay, previous video we talked about how this is a bad idea. I've mentioned in several videos that you've got to be so careful if you're buying real estate with a friend. There's so many from one person to another, even if it's your very best friend, life changes, expectations, assumptions, all of that can change in a matter of weeks and days. And it just throws everything into, it throws everything askew. Here's an article courtesy of the Vancouver Sun. And this is an example of a man and a woman that are described as friends in the article, bought a house in Maple Ridge. And they bought this house for $545,000. And they bought it in 2016. And they were going to, the woman here is named Ross, and she was going to put up a $250,000 down payment. And Lefebvre was going to put up a down payment and make yearly installment payments equaling her down payment, thereby paying off the mortgage, and 5 years hence they would sell the property and split the proceeds 50-50. Well, today she won't return his phone calls. So he's taking her to court because he obviously wants to get his money back too. It's a bit of an interesting one, and when you're reading articles in the newspaper or online, I feel like there's a lot they're not telling us. So let me give you an example here. So he put in $62,000 towards the down payment. She put in $250,000, and she was supposed to secure a mortgage of $245,000. In hindsight, it turns out she went and she got a much larger mortgage amount. He didn't know this. Okay. Fast forward. Now, apparently they're friends throughout all this. Lefebvre, the guy here, says he agreed to do a number of home improvements at Ross's request. And this cost him $22,000. He made home improvements that were included a new playhouse for her grandchildren, a perimeter fence, wooden sidewalk, a deck, a barbecue shelter, gardening, landscaping. He put in kitchen tiles and paint and paid for that too. Cedar shingles, a concrete sidewalk. And now he wants to be compensated. He says the article says he paid $8,000 towards new furniture. Time out. Why are you buying new furniture for this person? Anyway, furniture for her living room, her dining room, and her bedroom. And they went under this working assumption that he would be reasonably compensated by Ross once the house was sold. He also paid $14,000 over 7 years towards his share of the property taxes and insurance. And then, of course, it goes on to say he the article says that that was not a gift. He was meant to receive that money in payment back from her. Lefebvre believed that this was a good investment, and that they were going to do well on this. Ross. Just backing up a moment here. Lefebvre, the guy again, said he gave her permission to apply for a mortgage on her behalf. She says that the bank said that he didn't qualify for a mortgage. But that, I guess, if they did this together, he could still own his half. Now, here comes the interesting part. On title, she owns 99%. He owns 1%. Now, look, it sounds like, you can't be a Forrest Gump going into these things. You got to look at the documents. There's no way he should have missed the fact that he was being registered on title for 1%. I mean, unless he was turning a willing blind eye. I can't understand how these guys would find themselves in a cluster like this. Now, Lefebvre made monthly payments, according to the article, from 2016 to 2023, and that were $2,500. He also paid $30,000 to $45,000 a year. Those are those lump sums that we mentioned earlier. And then he asked her to sell the property, which they had agreed in 2016 that their holding period would be 5 years. Well, again, she, I guess, agreed to do that, but now she will not take his phone calls. I mean, so many things this has turned into a dog's breakfast, hasn't it? He's done these renovations, which he now wants to be compensated for. I don't know how he would be compensated for buying furniture, but the judge will have to figure that out. The fact that he's registered as a 1% owner and she's at 99%, or the fact that he didn't qualify for the mortgage and she did, or the fact that she got a larger mortgage amount than she and he had agreed to. I mean, there's so many things that have gone askew here. It suggests that there's a lot more to this situation than is in this article, right? And we just don't know, I think, is the honest answer to it. But maybe their relationship's a little more advanced than just a platonic relationship, I guess, which is what this article is saying. I don't know. It goes on to say that they had dinner every day. This is a very interesting, I'm just trying to find it here. Quote, they continued to believe, Lefebvre, he trusted Ross and continued to believe Ross was a genuine friend with whom he socialized every day and regularly had dinner. So, I don't know. Be careful when buying with friends. I mean, it's easier if you're doing this like as a business relationship. You're buying something, you're fixing it, and you're flipping it, and you have a very crystal clear timeline that you're working with. Something that's very open-ended. We'll sell in 5 years. We'll talk about it. If it's not documented on paper, it's it just gets messy because people have different pictures in their mind about what their holding period is, or what they're going to do with the money, or what they think is fair, and so on. Okay. Hope this has been of interest. Hope you found the pre-sale promotions there of value. If you give us a thumbs up, we really appreciate it. And if there's anything we can help with, you can reach us in the contact in the show notes below. See you next time. Bye.